Welcome back. This is segment number 20 of Making Sense for 7 Minutes, a summer-long series where we are exploring in bite-sized pieces our historical narrative as given to us in the Bible. And we're also asking the immeasurably relevant question, so what? Now, first of all, I want to let you know, nobody is paying me to say this. However, the Turner Classic Movies crowd has a wine club. You really might want to check it out. My latest batch came yesterday, and I started last night. I always order red wine. But they have all sorts of whites for you girls. Listen, our historical narrative is shaped or formed, if you will, for predominantly, without question, it's shaped by the events that are recorded for us in the first 3 chapters of Genesis. So that the first 3 chapters act somewhat like Act 1 of a play. Every significant event that takes place following these events, both in the Bible's historical record and every other historical record that is out there, whether those historical records are populated globally or are populated individually, every significant event that takes place will trace itself back to some event that happened in the first 3 chapters. So, from this point, the rest of the Old Testament deals with the people of God and the prophecies that had been given to the people of God concerning the coming of the Messiah. So that if you were to put all of this on a timeline and look at it, after walking around on the ground for the first 3 chapters, you suddenly zoomed up to 50,000 feet, got a bird's eye view. This is what the Old Testament would look like. Now, there is one other event, however, that takes place in the Old Testament that we need to pay special attention to because it is essential in our understanding this Bible and history overall. And it takes place right about there, okay? You know this isn't to scale. Good. It begins to be recorded in Exodus 19. God gives what we will refer to as the written law. He begins to speak primarily to Moses and gives to him what is properly referred to as the Mosaic Law. Now, the Mosaic Law is given to the Israelites, as the Jewish people were known at that point. And they had 3 components. First, there was the civil law. What to do if your neighbor's ox gores one of your family members. Second, the ceremonial law. The feast and festivals and offerings the people were to observe. And then third is the moral law, which is encapsulated in the 10 Commandments. And it is this third component, the moral law, that we are most concerned about because the first 2, the civil and the ceremonial were for a particular people for a particular length of time. Think Old Testament time. So that they no longer apply. They are no longer in effect. So, if someone comes up to me and says, and this has happened, so, Johnny, you take the Bible so seriously, then why is it that you wear clothing of two types of material when it is strictly forbidden in Leviticus 19:19? Well, because that law and all the others that go with it are no longer on the books. The moral law, however, as you look at it, the Ten Commandments have been reaffirmed and reestablished by Jesus himself and the rest of the writings of the New Testament. Now, the moral law is fourfold, one of which, the fourth that we'll look at, tells us why it is we need a Savior. Thanks, y'all.